So the first thing we're going to do is look at, I cut out all the recipe itself. I haven't given you that. This is the important bit, okay? Now, to work out percentages of something, what do we need to know first?
What's the total?
Good, the total. So we want to know what the total is. So you can all write on this page I've given you. So let's look at these and let's just check you fully understand what those are telling you. So I want to know what the total components are for this drink. What do you think? What do you think we've got to do?
Add up all the grams together.
Add up all of them. Yeah? So you think, what about calories?
Yeah.
No, that's something different, isn't it? Okay? Because different calories, different sources. Calories is not what we're worrying about. Okay, we've got, so do I add fats, saturates, carbs, sugars, fibre, proteins, and salts, add it all together?
Yeah.
You sure? Okay. Do you know what sugars are? They're carbs. Do you know what fibre is?
Protein.
It's not actually. I had to look this one up. It's actually a carb as well. Yeah. Saturates are fats. Why do you think they're separated? Yeah, I think it's because fats are not bad for you, are they? Fats are quite good, but there are different types of fats, and people want to know how many are saturated fats. Saturated fats are the not so useful ones. All right. And carbs are good for you, right? You use them as energy, but sugar is a particular type of carbohydrate, yeah? So what we've actually got is, if we've got main values here, so we've got fats, and out of those 12 grams, 5 of them are saturated. So the other type would be unsaturated. How many grams of unsaturated fat do you think we have?
7.
7. Okay, so we can just take the 12 for fat. We can take the 50 grams of carbs. Sugars are, look how much of the 50 is. Okay. There is a slight problem.
Yeah, I just how is it 10 grams of fiber?
So should we make a decision for this? So we've got protein. What should we do with the fibre? Should we add that on to the carbs? We can make this decision. It's something that you will then have to research for your own one. What we want to do is actually, I'm going to create a little table now. Okay. I'm going to write fats. How much do we think we have? 12 grams. I've got carbs. How much do we think? What are we going with? 60 grams. It's not a major problem if fibres are separate. But I think the sugars are definitely included in that. Yeah. So, I mean, it could be that we actually do add up them all, but it's a decision we've made. We've made not that, so that. And we've got protein. How much protein have we got? 15 grams. And then salt is actually, it's an important one. People want to know how much salt they have, but actually it's not a particular one of those. So I'm going to say, just for us, other. Is anyone sticking salt in their recipe?
No.
Okay.
Salt's actually really important for athletes. Yeah. It's what you, the electrical system that you have in your body needs salt. The water in your blood and all that has salt, and that's how the electricity goes through your body. So salt is actually, when people get cramps and things, it's because they're running low on salt. You can have too much of it though.
That means can we just eat Pringles for day?
Well, I don't know whether you've ever tried, but salt and vinegar Pringles, if you ever go for a really long run and you're really tired, have a few salt and vinegar crisps. Right up. I remember doing it once. I went for a long run. I'd done like 20 kilometres on one lap, and I didn't want to do it. And I got back to my car and went, "Oh, I've got some salt vinegar bread left over." I had some. Brilliant, gave me energy again. And obviously, it's not the only source of energy. Salt, definitely. It probably had fat in there as well, which really. But I'm going for other. So 0.4 grams. Salt is definitely one of those things, especially for endurance. I don't know about vinegar. I think it's just that part of the flame. Salt is what my body went on. Okay, so what's the total weight then? Do we think?
80.4 grams.
Yeah. So 12. That's 72. 87. 87.4. So we've got 87.4 grams. Seems a bit super accurate, but that is only one serving. Okay? So does that mean I would only make 87.4 grams of shake? No, I'd probably make 5 servings or something. Well, no, it's in there, isn't it? Milk is already in the fats and things like that, and protein. I haven't given you the actual ingredients. I could show you it, but we don't need to know.
So if you use ingredients that of what's already in it, would you like include like that? Because that's something back of like what you're using, and then the amount of what you're using of like.
Yeah, so if you pour in half a litre of milk, and on the back of the milk it says it's got this much protein and this much fat, and you can just write that down for however much you've used. So you would need to work out, well, if it's this per serving, and it will say 1 serving is however many, okay? So actually, the ingredients that I've got is 1 serving. I can show you it in a minute if you like. But actually, because we're working out proportion, it doesn't matter. So I know 1 serving will have that many grams. But how much would 2 servings have? 2 lots of that. But the percentage of fat, carbs, proteins will be the same, right? Doesn't matter how much of it you have. That's why the calories is not really the important thing, because I could have 1,000,000 calories, but the proportions of carbs thing would still be the same. So how do we work out the percentage of fat, for instance? Does anyone remember? Quick, just get it. I just had big yawn. About ready to go. Does anyone know how to do the percentage?
Yeah,
Isn't it like
you take 100 and then you like get all of it and make it.
What?
Did you mean to get 100?
Yeah.
Then you make 100? What?
Make sure it all adds up to something.
isn't
that
it
you
like
guys
when you average?
Yeah.
Well, average is something different, right?
And you just 500%.
Why?
You can't say you can't answer my question. How do I do it? With just do it.
50% chocolate and 50% marshmallow, then it'd be 100%.
It would be, but how do I work out? So how many percent?
That's just how much you
So you're with us. Good. We'll talk about everyone. I need to know what proportion of 87.4 12 grams is. How do we do it? Well, we've done that. 87.4. Almost. Well, what we do, when you remember, is we say we have 12 out of the 87.4 is fat, and then we times it by 100 to turn it into percentage. Yeah. Remember doing that? So can you do that for me? Morning. So we've been through it. Do you remember doing those calculations last time?
Yeah.
Because I haven't really done any explaining why this is the case. All right. I'm kind of assuming that you'll remember that's how you do it, right? Maybe something you need to look into at some point. Quick one for criterion D. The accuracy at which I have written those numbers down is 2 decimal places. Good, right? So we've given it to 2 decimal places. Now, do you think that's relevant? Do we need to give it to 2 decimal places? Probably too accurate. Okay. We've got our grams to the nearest tenth of a gram. We could probably round this to the nearest whole percent, just because we're going to have to put it into a pie chart. Does that make sense to say those are correct, but they're probably too accurate for our needs? So should we round them to a less accurate? Should we do it to the nearest what?
Oh,
Well, the thing is, this one won't go to a whole percent. So we try to nearest 10 and let's see what happens. Okay. So this one would be 13.7. This one would be 68.6. This one would be, and this one would be 0.5. Now, how can we do a little check to see whether my numbers make sense now? What should be true?
Oh, adding them all up.
Good, go for it. Now we have rounded, so it might not be perfect, but let's have a go with that.
so crazy.
So we did all right. If we add those, we do think that's 100%, which is super good. I mean, now in reality, in your recipes, there might be bits and pieces. Okay, so we think we've got fats, carb, protein. What about if we round it again to the nearest whole percentage? Is that still going to work?
Well,
Don't
It
you
would
need
be
that
zero.
to make it?
Okay.
Because the last one was.
Yeah, I think that's what people are noticing because, well, should we have a look? What would fat be if we rounded it to the nearest whole percentage? So 14%. This one would be 69%. Protein would be 17%. And other, maybe 1%.
Oh, it's 5. So yeah.
So 5 returns.
So is it 100?
It would be
1. So would it make more sense actually other rounds to 0% because we actually round that number and 4 rounds down? Yeah?
Oh, but 45, that
Five.
rounds to 50. But that
But we don't round twice.
Yeah, because if you had the one there, then it'll add up to 101 altogether.
So what we did, this one would round to 14. This number would definitely round to 69. This one would round to 17. But this one would round to 0. But if you rounded twice, you round up, then round up again, you make it more important. So what do you think? The reason is, I think nutritionally, is salt really much particularly important?
Yeah.
Potential. Right? But is there enough in it for us to worry? So the reason why I'm suggesting we can consider that as well as this is because we're going to now put these numbers into a pie chart. So I'm going to ask you to consider which set of numbers would actually be better, whether we're missing some information. Okay?
That
Well, let's make a decision. So let's do this. Let's put this information into a pie chart. Does anyone know how to do that? I've given you template. That was the other piece of paper. Okay?
Okay, just let them know.
I'm going to give you a protractor. Can you pass some around? Pass them around. These are very nice. You will notice that they fit perfectly with the circle. They've done behind it. Okay. Are you listening? So I'm just gonna. Should we go with these numbers? Let's do this one to start with. Okay. The reason why I'm taking photographs is so I can put it in my next page. You don't need to do that. Okay, I'm going to come down to this circle. All right. Now I am going to represent the information we've just got here, but in this pie chart. So there are a couple of ways. Sometimes it's quite nice. You get a little pie chart measure with percentages already in it. We don't have that. We've got protractors with degrees in it. I've given you one where each one. Does anyone know how many degrees each one is? It all works out.
5. Okay.
360 in the whole thing. So each gap is 10. All right, which is not so useful, but it does give you a good guide.
That's why there's 36 little things.
Yeah.
Instead of,
Okay, so what we need to do is work out how many degrees for each one. So I'm going to do the first one with you, see if you can apply it to the rest. Okay, so let's work out how many degrees 14% is. So we're going to work out, we're going to say, I need 14% of the whole circle is 360 degrees. How do we work that out?
Divide or
Divide by?
Yeah.
No, 365 divided.
There's 360.
25.
What did you do?
360 divided.
But how 360? Why does that work?
If you divide 100% by 14%, give you the exact number. Something like that.
Well, how about? I mean, I'd love to give you more time to think it through, but what I'm going to do is if 14% of that, well, what is 1% of 360 degrees?
3.6.
3.6. How did you do that?
Well, if you divide it by 10, so 10% is 36, and 1% is 1.
Yeah. It's 360 divided by 100, yeah? Okay. So could we then do 3.6 times 14?
50.4.
50.4? So we've got 50.4 degrees needs to be in our pie chart to represent fat. Well, again, that's a decision for you to make. I'll get you to do it in a sec. But how do we do it on our protractor? So what I'm going to get you to do is, we all start by going from the centre, draw your first one.
Can I see the bottom one?
It's 50.4. I'll put it back in a sec. So we've done fat. 14% of 360 is, so I did 1% is 3.6. Marco did that by dividing by 100. And then we did that times 14. Tells me it's 50.4 degrees. So what do? Well, we draw our first line from the centre. That's our starting point. On your protractor, put the 0. And then make sure, yeah, there's rulers as well. Make sure you then, now we should get it about right because 50.4 is actually, that's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So it's going to be approximately just after that, isn't it? 54.4 degrees. So I think if you measure that, I think our 50.4 degrees should represent the proportion of fat. What do you think? Do which bit? So on your protractor, checking if you remember how to use your protractor.
Yeah.
Put your 0. Line up your 0 on your protractor. Look at the scale that's counting up rather than counting down. So if you start at 0 and then the next one should be 10, 20. Then go to 50. I know that that's 50 because I've given you the scale, but you need to go to as close as you can get, but you're not going to get 50. This is why Ryan said, should we just round it to 50? That would be right. It's going to be hard to do 50.4, no? On pen and paper.
The protractor, I realize it has.
Well, it has 54, but does it have 50.4?
It could fit the lines in the tree.
Yeah, but they're ones, aren't they? The little lines are ones.
How would you get to 4?
No, because that would be 4, not 0.4.
So just take.
Oh.
Yeah, be
Oh.
very careful. You're not
Oh
doing
my-
54, you're doing 50.4. And the 0.4 is going to be a tiny little bit. But if you've not got a sharp pencil, you're probably not going to be able to do it. I think I've done 51 there, probably. So it would make sense to actually just go to 50. So Ryan was saying, should we just round it? Maybe that would make sense, yeah? Are we losing accuracy though?
Yes.
Does it matter?
No.
Not really in this case. Okay? So I've shown my 50. So what about carbohydrates then? Well, that's going to be, you need to work that out. Can I leave you to try and figure out the rest?
Yeah.
You may. Don't forget, once you've already drawn one, your 0 goes back to the here, and you start counting again. Yeah? Don't start at 0 at the same place every time. But let's see what you can come up with. Got to practice one, but see if you can follow on working out percentages.
So it's like these something that says 14%. 60%.
Exactly. So this time I'm going to do what is 69% of 360 degrees. So I already know that 1% is 3.6. So we're actually going to do 69 times 3.6 again.
Which could be 248.4.
248.4. So should we just go with 248
Oh wait. Yeah.
degrees? What are you confused about?
Pretty deep.
No, so that is 14% of the total, yeah? So what's a total circle in degrees? So we worked out that 14% of 360 degrees is 50.4 degrees. Well, what Margot said, if you look here, look, we wanted to know what 14% of 360 was. So she determined that 1% is 3.6 because you can do that nice and easy by dividing by 100, yeah? Then maybe I need to explain. So at that line there, we did 360 degrees divided by 100 is 3.6, and that's 1%. So that's what we did there. And then when I know 1%, I can use that for all of them, can't I? Cards is going to be big, isn't it? Yeah. 69, you're saying the right thing, it's way over half the circle. How do I know that? Because it should be more than half, because,
Well, I got 0 and then 248 here it's down.
yeah, well let's just check. Did you start the 0 here, or did you go back to here? Now, the reason why I know yours must be wrong. So you start at 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, 210, 20, 30, 40, 50. So I just roughly, I know it's going to be 2, 3. You're going to measure with a protractor, but mine should be all the way around there. It's got to be way more than half.
17.
See, that's what I want. That's cool. So next to that, for example,
69%, which is 248 degrees, is carbs. Well, I would say 248 is enough to do. Because you can do whole degrees on your protractor. So I've gone with not 50, but I just went with 50 degrees, which would be 14% of fat. I've got my carbs. And probably what's left is protein.
but you gotta do that tiny sliver of.
Well, we called that 0, haven't we? That's kind of why we did it. So this time we probably don't need to, but let's just check. 17% of 360 degrees. So that's 17 times 3.6 is. Can you do that for me? 61.
61.2.
Shall we go with 61 degrees? Now let's just check. If I measure that, it should be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60.2. I shouldn't have to do anything else. So you might separate that bit. Oh, I can't do it because of my things. Linking. So now, and my final one, like this is my, I'm going to say protein.
I don't even think you could measure 0.4 with sharp pencil.
So should we go, I would then put a little arrow and say 0.5%, we can say other, or salt in this case.
Yeah, it's definitely
You can lay it on.
actual size.
My circle is complete.
60.
Now, what you'll see is you'll then look at kind of sports nutrition and it'll show you that, and they'll be like, got too many carbs. Now, just look at that and go, too many carbs.
Got it.